The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Okay,
you have to click. Okay, I'm going to make you the presenter, and you have to click Show My Screen. So, introduction, everybody. This is from the team from University of Massachusetts Lowell on global entrepreneurship. This is the second webinar in the series. So, click Show My Screen, Ashwin, and you should be on.
There you go. Hi, we're going to introduce the speakers. I'm Ashwin Mehta, and let me turn it over to Michael Siusta.
I'm Professor Michael Siusta.
Hi, Michael.
Good morning. This is Yi Yang.
Hello.
Good morning. This is Sunny Lee Sung.
Good morning. Everybody is nice and cheerful. Looks good.
Good. So we can share the screen now, right?
Yeah. You can show click Show My Screen and show your power slides. Yeah.
Are you able to see this slide?
Yeah. Yep, you can go ahead.
Okay. Well, hello there, and thank you for joining this webinar to subject teaching entrepreneurship and developing curious and questioning minds. So we're going to talk about our experience.
Yeah, right there, in the right screen, bottom left. Go ahead. Yeah.
So the agenda is what do we teach, and then talk about how do we engage students, and give you some examples that you can very well apply to your institutions. We already introduced ourselves, and with that, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Yang to talk about some of the program curriculum.
First of all, I would like to give you an overview about our entrepreneurship program, very brief overview. We started entrepreneurship concentration in 2007, and now the entrepreneurship is undergraduate concentration, and we have 150 students in the concentration right now. And when we designed this program, we want to expose the students to all kinds of entrepreneurship activities. So in this concentration, students are required to take 5 courses, then plus electives. First of all, students need to take the Principle of Innovation and Entrepreneurship course. This is a course open to all students, even the students from other colleges. In this course, the main goal is to help students develop a creative, entrepreneurial, and innovative mindset so they can use this kind of entrepreneurial spirit in their future life, even when they are not starting a new venture themselves. But we do believe the entrepreneurial mindset is very important for their career development and as well as for their life. After taking this principal course, the students will move to all kinds of directions, and they need to take the starting a new venture, which will expose them to the process about how to start a business on their own. And this course will teach them how to assemble resources in marketing, in business operation, in team building, in legal issues like intellectual property protection, and as well as a financial process. And we also believe a lot of students will work for corporations rather than starting their new venture. So we also require them to take the corporate entrepreneurship course. This course specifically focuses on what kind of entrepreneurial activities will take place within an organization, such as identifying strategic opportunities for company to engage in rejuvenate their business, markets, and industries. So through this course, students also need to think about how can they play a role in promoting entrepreneurial activities in their future organizations. We also specifically, focus on the innovation management, which is how the entrepreneurs can take advantage of innovative opportunities and turn those opportunities into a competitive advantage, and as well as new business. And in this course, a particular focus is placed on emerging scientific and technical innovations and opportunities and challenges. And the students will examine innovative strategy, planning model, evaluation model, licensing, and the commercialization process, etc. And finally, the students needs to take the finance for emerging business enterprises. We do feel that financing issues are the most challenging issues facing a lot of entrepreneurs. So this course will expose the students to all sorts of topics related to the financing issues in entrepreneurial process, such as venture capital, private placement, bank credit, public financing, etc. In addition to those 5 courses, we also offer all sorts of entrepreneurship selective, such as entrepreneurship strategic implementation and global entrepreneurship courses. If you want to know more details, feel free to email me or go to our website. Now, I will turn to Professor Sujita, and he will discuss more details about what do we do in the classroom.
Okay, so thank you. This is Professor Siuchta, and I'm going to kind of go over briefly some big level ideas behind how we approach teaching entrepreneurship, and again, kind of keeping it very cursory at this point. But most importantly, one of the most important things you can do is make sure you get students' attention early in the class. And so great way of doing that is to bring in some real world context and examples. It's also important to students to realize that entrepreneurship is part of being a business, and again, it may depend on your own particular students, what background they come from, but we do find that some of the challenges sometimes is students don't necessarily even understand some basic business principles, so it's important to convey that to them as well. And so that's what we give them a cursory introduction to some basic business elements of design. And that's also important for people to understand why they're even having to study entrepreneurship. I think there's a perception that people don't actually need to study this. It's just something they can go out and do. Perhaps entrepreneurs are born, not made. We try to dispel that belief and instill in them that there is actually something you can learn, something very valuable you can learn about entrepreneurship to make your ventures more successful. And in doing so, we invoke concepts of creativity, innovation, and things like that. I'm going to go a little bit more in detail on this next bit in a later slide, talking about different types of models of entrepreneurship, different types of entrepreneurs with different levels of motivation different entrepreneurs may have, and sort of where ideas come from. And always it's important to make your class experience, I think, very experiential. And we do that through a number of exercises, and we'll talk a little bit more about that later in the webinar. So here's an example of, again, kind of very high-level approaches to entrepreneurship, basically viewing it as a process and this intersection between creativity, the resources that are provided in the environment, and then the particular innovative or inventions of the particular entrepreneur. And it, again, it envelops this intersection of these various factors taking place. And obviously, it depends on the particular landscape, the context in which the entrepreneurs operate. That's obviously going to vary depending on your own particular setting. It's one of the most, I think, fun things about teaching entrepreneurship is to tap into students' own particular creativity and to bring creativity examples from outside the classroom. And so we do that consistently and constantly, and you'll see some examples of that also later in the webinar. But again, also bringing the context to the students that's something that they can relate to is also very helpful. And so we do that through different examples. And again, you'll see some of that, for instance, this McDonald's example, which we'll talk about later also. And so again, going back to this concept that teaching entrepreneurship is something that's valuable and there's something to be gained by taking these courses, and in particular, students do develop skills and abilities and around a mindset, but they also learn very relevant tools. And so we teach them things like business model canvas, a lean launchpad, blue ocean strategy. I'm not going to go into a lot of detail, any detail really at this point, but these are all tools that are very useful for evaluating opportunities and executing and testing and validating ideas and coming up with innovative solutions to problems. And so again, these are various tools that we use throughout the various courses. And again, I mentioned that there's different types of models. So you will, one thing that's very interesting about teaching entrepreneurship is that there are a range of motivations for different entrepreneurs, and you'll find that with your own students. And so some of them may have very high growth aspirations, some of them may have more modest aspirations, but ultimately to be successful, they need to be sustainable. So we do also want to make sure the students have a sense of what it means to have a sustainable venture, even if they're going for something in a more social space. And what we also want to highlight is that there's a definite difference between sort of entrepreneurial thinking and traditional managerial thinking, which they would get in more traditional business or MBA type classes. And so there we stress different types of thinking like causal versus effectual thinking, different types of managerial techniques, traditional management versus more entrepreneurial opportunity identification approaches to entrepreneurship. And the last thing then is just an example from a class that I teach, the Financing Emerging Business Enterprises. And this is, again, as Professor Yang mentioned, something we think is critical for students to know about pursuing an entrepreneurial venture. What I find in teaching this course, and you may encounter this as well, it's sometimes one of the most challenging courses students will take. A lot of students who pursue entrepreneurship are doing it because they don't like things like math and accounting and finance. They would have gone for those majors if that had been their particular interest. So it's important to make sure that they do develop an understanding of this and a comprehension of this, but doing it in a way that makes it accessible to them, because a lot of times they will have, now if you're coming from more of an engineering background, and maybe this is not so much an issue, they may have more of a facility with numbers and they kind of enjoy this part. But for those students who don't come from such a quantitative background, this may be a bit challenging. So it is important to make it also very engaging. And so what I do in teaching this course, I use these things called clickers. There's a picture of that on the lower part of the picture there, where I can do in-class polling. I can pose them questions, and this facilitates class discussion around key issues. I have them also do, and so we do a number of in-class discussions revolving around, for instance, the television show Shark Tank, where people come on and pitch an idea, and we have students evaluate the idea in real time in the classroom. And then lastly, I have them do actual experiential learning activities, such as actual crowdfunding campaigns for local nonprofits and charities. And so this gives them real world experience, what's actually like to go out and raise funds. And oftentimes they find it's a lot more challenging than they would have expected. So thank you.
Okay, with this, now we're going to turn it over to Dr. Lee and Dr. Yang to talk about how do we engage students.
We have been teaching entrepreneurship for more than a decade, and we do see the students actually changing from the generation Y to Gen Z, and we observe their learning style actually also quite different. Through the comparison, you can see from the slides, the Gen Y kind of focus on the linear learning, and they focus on facts, knowledge, and also they tend to rely on guided learning, etc. But when we teach the younger generation right now, Gen Z students are quite focused on like linear learning, and they want to know how to learn, and their learning is 24 hours, 7 days a day. Through all sorts of approaches, not just in the classroom, but also through the social media, through a lot of things they expose to every day. And they also try to feel the learning as a fun. So given this, the characteristics of the younger generation, we feel that we need to use more engaging activities in the classroom to evolve them into the learning process effectively. And Professor Lee will introduce our approach more in details.
Later we were talking about the gamification, how to use the game in the class. Beginning of before our example, we want to later talk about the learning pyramid. So there are two kinds of learning. At the top of a pyramid, there have a traditional lecture, reading, audio, visual, But at the top of the pyramid, they have teaming activities such as discussion group, team coach. The learning effect is different. Traditional learning, after 2 weeks, student will forget 50%. But team activity-based learning, so student after 2 weeks, they still can remember 80%. So there are significant difference. We apply to these principles in our teaching or for the Generation Z.
So given the characteristics we just discussed for this younger generation, Gen Z, so in our classroom, we try to focus on the teaching methods on the bottom of the pyramid. We include a lot of discussion, practice by doing, or teaching opportunities. In particular, we try to focus on the experiential learning because as we lay out here, I hear and I forget, I see and I remember, I do and I understand. So this is a very important teaching philosophy now. We heavily build it into the entrepreneurship curriculum. And this slides just give you a few, typical examples of the teaching activities we used in our classroom, which is how we can engage the students in the classroom. For example, even in lectures, we try to use clickers. Professor Suchita uses clicks to engage the students all the time and ask them questions, and the students can use the clickers to answer the question. So the whole class actually get engaged into the class discussion. We also have a group discussions. When we have the students read the short case or watch a video, and they always require to have questions in their mind, and then follow that with group discussions. And later, Professor Lee will show us example about the mind maps and how the mind maps can be executed in the classroom. We also implement a lot of experiential learning activities as listed here, and we will show you more detailed concrete examples in later slides. So now I will turn to Professor Lee, and he will give us more details about how to use the mind maps in entrepreneurial classrooms.
Mind map is a very good teaching tool to inspire students' creativity. So the format is they have one article to specialize under for the size. You can say especially used in the classroom exercise.
Stay close to the microphone, Professor. Stay close. Sometimes your voice is wandering away.
Okay. The format of mind map is at the center of the map. You can put the key topic at the center, then have a radical design with branches. So different branch can cover different questions. So encourage students use keywords and not use a formal structure, but semi structure to describe the phenomena, the case, or the key concept. Also can incorporate the color and the small picture together, use a metaphor. So mind maps also can be used in a small group. So can use a brainstorm. I provide some example here. So this is a book summary. So a famous book, The World is Flat. So you can say just one page of mind map, you can summarize the 10 key bigger trend of globalization. Also some important convergence, 3 signs of convergence. So use pictures, so also show the important case, important trend. So one picture can summarize all the key thoughts. This is students' work for their read the article for lean startup. So summarize, so through one picture, so student can learn lots. So I want to introduce the formation use mind map. Basic class such as 65 minutes. The first 5 minutes lecture can have a shorter introduction. Then in the next 10 minutes can talk about the mini case. Lecture can introduce the key concept or key theory, also have a shorter discussion. Then let a student do their job. So student could be divided into group and prepare a mind map and address the question related to a case or topic. The lecture can provide 5 to 6 questions, so students use branches answer these questions. After that, have 15 minutes, so 2 groups could be selected to have a player killing. So this is some kind of gamification, have a fun. Then student will vote for the winner. Final 9 minutes, a lecture can wrap up, provide a takeaway. So this is the student, they do some group discussion. Then after discussion, they put their mind map on whiteboard, so different group can compare their findings. Yeah, yeah.
This is another example, right? Yeah.
Yeah, so this is another classroom in China. So you can say student use a color, different color of on the poster. Also, so you can say the classroom is totally different. This is two teams. They have a player killing. So I'm at the center and facilitator the debate. So 2 teams have totally have 6 questions on their mind map. So they are talking point by point. So also have a debate. It's a good thing is the lecture also can invite the other students engage the debate, also vote for different points. So have a lot of fun.
And now I'm going to show you some examples we used in the classroom as experiential learning activities. So first of all, let me give you overview, and give you a list of experiential learning activities we have been used in various classes. The first thing is the case study. We all use the case studies in all sorts of business courses, and many of us actually use the cases from Harvard Business cases or other case database. But we do feel sometimes we should have the student to look at the cases that related to their life, which will make the learning more effective. For example, in our entrepreneurship course, we have the students study the case developed based on the UML students venture, Invest Well. And we have the students to put their feet into the founder's shoes and help, ask them to help the founder to make tough choices, and also expose them to the process how UML students actually start a business on campus. And that worked very well. Because our students can find connections with the case themselves. We also use a lot of movies in the classroom, and use the movies as a setting to teach entrepreneurship process. And we will show you more details in later slides. When we have the students read the case or watch video clips, and we always ask them to think like they were the founders, so kind of a role play, and it has been a great exercise in various classes as well. And as Professor Shuchita just mentioned in his class, and he also used the negotiation role play exercise, so the students can play like two sides of the table and think through from both the perspectives of a founder as well as the venture capitalist, the future equity investors. We also have a student to interview entrepreneurs in a couple of classes and ask them to ask the real entrepreneurs what is the challenge facing them when they start their new business, and what factors actually contribute to their success or failure. That has been a quite successful exercise as well, as our students learn a lot from those real examples. We do want the student to get out of the building, okay, and not just listening or have a group discussion within the classroom. So we have students design the questionnaire themselves and also do the real interviews with their potential customers, and then evaluate the feasibilities of their business ideas. We incorporate the design thinking exercise into the classroom, ask them to design website, marketing brochures, or prototyping of their new business ideas. And in almost all the entrepreneurship courses, we require semester-long group projects. Either ask them to test the feasibility of their business idea or develop a business model canvas for their business idea. So those experiential learning exercise we feel are very important components of our entrepreneurship teaching. And now we want to highlight the movie watch as an approach to teach entrepreneurship. Professor Lee will give us more details about this exercise.
Shark Tank probably is the most famous reality pitch show. Not only have a US version, also have a Japan, China, Indian's version, UK's original from UK's version. So this show, the best part is not include entrepreneur, how they pitch their very creative ideas, good business. Also, give our student another perspective. It's important investors' perspective, how they evaluate the idea, how they choose the best idea, how they revise or improve the business idea, then and they put money in. So this is a student love the show.
In addition to the TV shows, there are also a lot of movie stories we can use in the classrooms. Here we just listed some classic American movies, and also one Chinese movies actually can be used in the classroom as entrepreneurial stories to teach the entrepreneurship process. Professor Lee, do you want to give more examples here?
Yeah, another example is Silicon Valley. This movie talking about the game between Bill Gates and Steve Jobs. Also very popular movie, The Social Network, showed the early days, the students' venture, Facebook on the campus, how they develop basic idea, how to the teamwork. Also have Steve Jobs. Now I provide an example of the famous movie, The Founder, talking about the entrepreneur process of entrepreneur path of McDonald's. This movie probably have could be use a lot of entrepreneur education. The first part is probably such as how to pitch, how to have pitches good ideas, how to persuade people, so how to negotiate. So this is one part, lots of movie scenario related of the pitch. Second part is this movie can talk about how to scale up the business, especially use franchising business model. So how to use a movie in classroom. So not just for entertainment. So this is my design. So before the movie, introduce some basic concept, also maybe some new field, a new concept. Importantly is assign some questions. During screening, so can push students to collect some data from the movie. Also understand the key concept. I also put some basically 15 questions on Blackboard, so students can they need to answer the questions when they watch movies. After screen, we could have a class discussion and the debate. Also have a role play, such as if you are McDonald's brother, where you sell the company to Ray Kroc. At the end of class, we can have a wrap up. So make a connection between the theory and the real life situations. So this is some question I prepare for the student before the movie. So the student can review this question, think about this question, link to the key concept. So after class, we will ask the student do some exercise, such as develop a business model canvas of McDonald's. In the movie, that is not talking about to consumer, to C part. Most important is to B part. So to B part is how the company, the McDonald's, can scale up the business. So this part is a little bit difficult part for the student, but the movie show the whole process, how Ray Kroc recruit franchisee, attract some entrepreneur. So this is give an example, so student can use a business model canvas to depict McDonald's 2B business.
And lastly, we will show you some creativity learning examples.
So as Dr. Yang and Dr. Lee pointed out, the audience these days is more looking for fun type of way of learning entrepreneurship. And what we do is to put up several different examples on the screen and ask students to say what it is. For example, this item on the screen, and within a matter of 10 minutes, we ask them to come up with what they think it is, and you'd be amazed how many different answers that you get there. No one would have said that this is a mousetrap, and this is an example of a patent that was applied for this particular device. So this is one way of having students get become more creative, curious, ask questions. Another example we do is we give them 2 minutes to say how many different ways they can use the paperclip, and I use that almost in every of my classes, and I'm surprised that I get answers like 35 to 40 different uses of this particular product. So this is again bringing some fun part into the classroom. Another example, I give them a item that we will use normally every day, and ask them to how many different ways you can use this particular item, like spoon. So make entrepreneurship learning more fun, and that's the best way and effective way of grasping some of the concept, some of the process that are applied, such as the business model generation or the lean launchpad. Giving them all these different examples that make the entrepreneurship learning more effective. We also give them something as what can you do with $2 in 2 hours, and again they come up with all kinds of creative ideas and make it again a fun process to learn. So I hope you have received some highlights of the things that we do in our classes. We constantly upgrade, making sure that we keep the audience in mind, because the audience is evolving fast. They have new different ways of interacting with each other, new ways of learning, and so we want to make sure that our classrooms are engaging, providing the kind of structured process, but in a fun way and a more creative and innovative way. With that, we conclude this webinar, but before we get to a question, we just want to announce that the next webinar is going to be on May 28th at 8 a.m. Eastern Time. This is a case study on our entrepreneurship ecosystem at our university. Dr. Stephen Tello, who is a Vice Provost for Innovation and Workforce Development, and also a faculty in our Manning School of Business. He will talk about the how we evolved the case ecosystem over the last 7-8 years. With that, we
fantastic, very good.
Krishna.
Yeah, fantastic, great job, guys. I think that I think that, it's pretty fascinating the various types of examples that you've shown, how you engage the students to think and innovatively and participate, active learning. I think underlying everything that you said, all of you said today, is the students have to become engaged in thinking about things. And I'm sure there's a lot of people in the audience, about 50 people here, who have been listening patiently, and I'm sure many of them would love the opportunity to participate, just like you get your students to participate. I think I'm glad you've kept enough time for participation. So I know there will be a few people here, so I'm going to give them a couple of minutes to text, and then I can unmute a few of them if they want to chat a little bit about some things. So let's get the questions rolling. Okay, so we have let's see what all you wanted. Okay, let's see. I'm gonna pick on some people and see if they can respond, right? Let's see. I see Madhu Atre is here, Ranji is here, Rio is here. There's people that I know, and we've got a whole bunch of other people that I know. So we can get them to Anil, Pandit, Ashok Darsanala. All these people are folks that are quite active in various activities all over India, and I can see that quite a few people from different countries here. So text in. If you're not familiar with the text feature, you have a text feature where you can just text in questions and comments, and we'll get you to and then I can unmute you so you can ask the question personally and get some interaction going. So Ranji has a question. Let's start with Ranji Vaidyanathan from Oklahoma State University. He spends a lot of time in India helping some of the engineering colleges in India. So Ranji, you want to jump in and ask the question yourself?
Yeah. Do usually the students come up with the idea themselves, or in your opinion, are those ideas achievable or not achievable? I mean, are they off the wall kind of ideas, or achievable kind of ideas?
That's a very good question. We have different approaches in different courses given the nature. In my course, Studying New Venture, I do have students come up with their own business ideas. And some of them actually already have their business ideas before they come to class. They even already started their business. And majority of students still thinking and try to work with other students. And in my class, I do have a couple of exercises before in the beginning of the semester to help them know each other and also help them to brainstorm the ideas they want to work together for the semester project. Several years ago, I did try to assign a real project to my students. For example, get business ideas from the campus technology transfer office. But based on my experience, I think because my course is Starting New Venture, and a lot of the students, their business ideas are not necessarily related to the technology innovation. And I also feel when the student have the passion on the ideas, they can accomplish the term project better. In later years, I just have them to come up with their own business ideas. But I want to, I always emphasize, no matter what kind of business idea you have to show me something new in your ideas. And also you should, the whole team should have a commitment and passion, on the idea they want to work on for the time, for the term, for the semester. But I think in other courses like corporate entrepreneurship and managed innovation, the situation may be different.
So let me add a couple of examples that we do in some of the other classes. For a 2-week program that we have on global entrepreneurship, we invite students to, or rather encourage students to come up with the ideas, but also we bring ideas from or the projects from the newly started ventures. We have a medical device incubator here with several startup companies, so we ask them to provide the project. So students get a flavor of not only their own ideas, but also some already started ventures and come up with such thing as the customer discovery, the competitive analysis, and so forth. So it varies from classes to classes. You want to say a few words about how you do it?
I'll say, like in the Managing Innovation course that I teach, a slightly different approach. So in there, I will assign them a company. Each team has a different company, and I get those from various lists, like companies who've done recent IPOs or Forbes list of most innovative companies. And then the students are tasked with coming up with a new product or service idea for that particular company. So that forces them to understand the company's capabilities, resources, the industry that the company competes in, and then also to be creative and innovative and come up with a new type of innovation.
But the key point is that we want them to understand the process of entrepreneurship. If they have their idea, they'll start the venture, like the example we gave you in Visaware, where 2 students went through the process of learning entrepreneurship and they launched their venture. So it's a combination of different ways of making sure that they understand the process, and in the end, if they create a venture, that's great.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Yeah, well, lots of questions coming in. Okay, this is from Jianbo New. I've unmuted you if you want to ask the question yourself. Otherwise, I'll read out your question. Jianbo? His question is how to transfer the creative thinking from games introduced today to business activities.
Can you repeat the question?
How to transfer the creative thinking from the games introduced today to business activities. That makes sense. That's from Jianbo New. Can you clarify, Jianbo, if you?
Yeah. So creativity, yeah, this is a key. We want to inspire students, such as in the PK, we call player killing. So student two group, they probably have such as for one business solution, they have such as option 1 is target the small business. Maybe option 2 is target a middle-sized business, right? So 2 teams, they one team defense say, okay, I want to target the small business. Another second team, they say, okay, I want to target the customers as a middle-sized business. So they have a debate on pro and con, and then say this advantage and disadvantage of different kind of market, different of solution. So through the debate, actually, the student will more understand of different options. Also, they can explore different options. Also, think about entrepreneur actually have different paths. So they can choose option 1, also can choose option 2. Actually, they can choose both. It means when they target the market A, they also think about the next stage. Next year, they can target continue target market second market. So through this debate or player killing, student more understand, okay, option could be valuable. Also, different paths have different different ways. So different need a different resource, different need a different skill, different. So they also can use business model canvas to think about different paths. So this is my way on the
This question about Madhu Atre about mind maps. I thought that was an interesting way to teach. The question is, do you have any good references for teaching this concept, mind maps? Madhu, you want to elaborate on that? I've unmuted you.
So my question is, it's a great concept and looks pretty interesting. If you want to teach it for the first time to some of the students, especially the younger ones, are there some references with some good examples of the mind maps which we can use to help teach this concept?
Mind maps. Ashwin? What happened to your connection? Oops, you got muted for some reason, somehow. Okay, Ashwin, Ashwin, go ahead, yeah. Go ahead, yeah. Yeah, you got muted by mistake, but go ahead, yeah.
Okay, go ahead. Okay. Yes, yeah, here you can find this article, Journal for Economic Education, published in 2004. And we'll be very happy to provide more examples if you reach out to us after the webinar.
Thank you very much.
Okay, another question is thank you for sharing. This is from Fyongmai Nguyen, sharing methods of teaching. What would you do if students refuse to do a project exercise, as they say, that do not want to share their business ideas to be copied by others? I've experienced this situation. Could you give some suggestions?
Yeah, it is a very well. We understand that. So in my class, we prepared the non-disclosure confidentiality agreements, the template. If they want to have their teammates to sign this agreement, they are free to do so. And also, we allow students to, at least in my class, I allow students to do the project by themselves. So they don't have to share the idea with someone. If they do not feel comfortable to present the idea to the class, they can just come to my office and present to me. At 1 year, I do have a student. He wants to present to the whole class, but he is also afraid of other students stealing his idea, and he had the whole class sign up the confidentiality agreements. So that happens, but not very often. I always teach, emphasize from an idea to a real business, especially to a successful business, there's a long way to go. And when they try to recruit like additional employees, or they try to sell the business to the potential investors, or the customers, we have to present the ideas anyway. But we do have some mechanism here to protect their ideas.
Yeah, I also convey to students that if you, again, I can understand and appreciate the students' concern about these issues, and I tell them if they really are that concerned about it, they don't need to do that particular project. They can come up with a different idea for the class. But ultimately, it is important to convey to them, they're going to have to tell people about their idea. And if they're that worried about it, then maybe it's indication of two things. One, the idea is not that great, or their ability to execute is not that great. So it is important for them to, understand that there will be multiple people competing in the space, and business is competitive. And so if you don't have confidence in your ability to execute, then you may want to question about whether you have the right team in place. But it is a real issue. But it is definitely worth having a conversation with the students about.
Okay, here's a question from Sugita. It says, do you have students who have started businesses based on the ideas presented in class and succeeded in the real business world? You have some examples of that?
Well, we had one example on one of the slides called InvisiWare, but there are a few others. One of them is the prosthetic limb. The two doctoral students developed this device, and now they made a successful venture. They have an operation in India as well, so they are targeting countries like India for marketing their devices. So yes, there are many examples, and we'd be happy to share some of those if you wish. I
will say also that we think we talked about this, or actually Steve Tell will talk about this in the next webinar more. We have a number of activities on campus here that are co-curricular or extracurricular, where students can do pitch competitions, and we do see, so ideas coming out of particular classes may not be as sustainable, because it's basically based on the students that happen to be in the class at the time. But these other ventures, so the InvisiWare example, the non-spec venture that Professor Mehta just talked about, they also emerge from these difference maker competitions that we have on campus, which bring together students from across the campus, so not just particular students from any one class.
Okay, it's another question from Prafulla Hate. He says, what are some of the best efforts that can be taken to test or validate prototypes of student ideas in the least possible time?
Can you repeat that?
Yeah, it's about prototypes. You know, students who are trying to develop prototypes. How can you help them validate their prototypes or test them in the least possible time?
Well, I think the customer discovery process as a part of the Lean Launchpad that we briefly talked about, it's a way to find whether there's a market, there's a customer, etc. So the customer discovery process is very important. In the process of going through that, they may come up with some different way of solving a problem, for example.
Yeah, our classes are business courses, so as maybe it's the capstone course integrates elements of the engineering courses. But so for our students, they're typically not going to be so tied down with the actual technology as they would in an engineering class. Ours is more about the markets that they serve, the business idea itself, the business model behind the venture. So those they can validate without necessarily, and also test without necessarily having to have a working prototype. So we do emphasize this concept of minimum viable product, which we use to distinguish between a prototype, which is sort of a working, albeit maybe a simplified version of a technology. You don't need to have that with an MVP concept. So you can actually go and test and validate ideas with a much simpler concept.
In terms of the testing, we do encourage students to get out of the building. And in my class, I have the assignments. They have to talk to potential customers or the insiders of the industries that they try to enter, and complete the report on the interviews. The interview is quite open with the questions like what are the best 3 things about the idea, what are the 3 things they need to improve, and how the feasible in their mind, the potential customers' mind, it is feasible or not, but if it is not feasible, and how can they improve it. And after interview, I require them interview at least 10 people in my class. And after that, they need to develop a survey to distribute the survey to at least 30 people. So using those tools, at least the student can start the process to identify the customers who are the real target customers, and further develop the ideas to meet the need in the marketplace.
Okay, next another question from Satyendra Bhatt. Do you provide startup space within campus? If yes, where do they get funding from?
Yeah, so we have an incubator facility, we have accelerator facility, etc. So we do provide those kind of resources to students. And as Professor Schuster mentioned, we have several such activities, including a difference maker, which is an idea contest that students can participate. So there are a number of such things. And next week, when we have our next webinar that we have on May 28th, Professor Tello will go through a lot more discussion on this entrepreneurship ecosystem. We'll touch on these the different resources that are available to the students.
And also we have one more seminar specific focus on the ideation challenges and also the incubators on campus.
So there will be a couple of more case studies after the May 28th webinar.
Okay, a couple of more questions. One is obviously from engineering faculty. When a student has a technical innovation, how do we help that person convert it into a successful business? It's a very general question, but maybe give some general answers. Converting student technical innovation into a successful business. I guess everything that you said today has something to do with it, but any comments, I guess, would be appreciated.
Well, again, it goes back to these question on the prototype and so forth. It's a yes. If student has an idea, technical idea, or new technology, what we talk about is how do you go first to find the market, the customer, so that customer discovery process, the Lean Launchpad, which can provide the very useful information through the process of identifying who's going to pay for this one, who's going to buy it, etc. So the business model canvas that we talked about, the Lean Launchpad, these are some of the tools that are available for students to really do discovery of who's going to really buy and pay. The in-person interviews, the surveys, and so forth are helpful tools to help students to understand and discover their real potential customer.
I think to help the student with good ideas and turn that into a successful business, we really need to take an ecosystem approach. Taking a couple of academic courses will be a very good starting point, but on campus we need to provide a lot of co-curricular or extracurricular activities and resources to support such initiatives. As we said, it takes the whole village to raise a kid, and I would say it takes the whole system to have a successful entrepreneur.
Okay, Daniel Prabhakar says he loves the idea of teaching entrepreneurship through movies. Very good. Question from Ramesh. How to design rubrics to assess creative work?
Expand on that question a bit.
I think I guess maybe within the entrepreneurship type of course, if there's somebody comes up with some creative ideas, how to have a rubrics to assess their work. Probably that's what. It's a very general question.
Yeah,
go ahead.
That's a great question, and I mean it's not so different for creative versus a technological idea or any type of business venture idea. So one approach, and it's interesting because we have I talked to we have a very pretty famous author on UMass Lowell campus in the English department. And I asked him once, how do you assess students their work? And he says, well, I can't do that. What I can do though is I can evaluate their effort. So, and I kind of have the same reaction in talking about students' ideas for new businesses. So the market ultimately is going to decide if this is a good idea or not. And so my opinion may or may not be that valid, but what I can assess is their effort. So what I think it's important to have rubrics set up that you can, and again, you can't watch them all the time, but specific metrics that you can use to monitor and measure effort as they're doing a particular task or project.
I want to say that in the movie, such as the founder show the McDonald's brothers, they developed the basic idea such as a 3D system. Actually, the idea is very good, but at the beginning is not very good, need a continued improvement. So execution part actually is also important. So through the movie, students can more understand the ideation process. So the idea should be more continue improved, also execute well.
Okay, we run out of time. Closing comments from your team, Ashwin?
Thank you again for attending this webinar, and please send us questions, or if you want some more information at ge2@uml.edu. And again, thank you. Look forward to seeing you on May 28th.
Yep, thank you all. Thank you, everybody. And
Thank you very much for everybody coming.
thank you. Thank you to the UML team.